Fuck, the electricity here is so bad.
Yeah,
It's
kinda
turning
cool,
on and
eh?
off. Dude, why'd you just put your lips on it, you fucking grub?
That's mine.
Oh.
Way to ruin the...
Get
fucked.
Get out.
Hey everyone, I'm Jordan. I'm Ben. And today we're in the Nepalese Himalayas.
Alright, so we were planning on bringing you guys some audio from the Himalayan mountains, but unfortunately the weather wasn't on our side.
We were at 3,500 meters, so...
What we want to bring to you today is a little bit of information on how we've modified our bikes, what brands we've used, what we like, what we don't like, and just a little bit of experience, I suppose, on our kind of journey.
Yeah, so we're now 9 months into a trip where we started in Brisbane, where we live, and we're going all the way across the world pretty much to London is the end. Currently in Pakistan, doing a lot of off-roading lately, and it's a good thing that we prepared for it by choosing a nice, simple bike, reliable bike, and we settled on the Suzuki DR650.
Yeah, so a little bit on the 650 for those that don't know. It's a single cylinder carbureted motor. It's got minimal electronics, it's oil cooled, and it's quite light. And it's Japanese, so you get a reliable bike.
Japan.
Perfect for touring.
Yeah.
If you're like us, as soon as you got your hands on a new bike, we were straight online and we were ordering so many different parts.
Yeah.
A lot of useless stuff.
I didn't know what I was doing, but this was a fun process, to be honest. We've got all our mates around. Some of our mates really fucked the bikes up, actually.
Henry Swindon,
yeah,
calling you out.
Henry thought he did a good job, but he really just beat the shit out of like my forks and yeah, anyway. But all part of the process, learning curve, and it's good to do this before you go on a trip like this because if you're like me and you've got no idea about bikes, I learnt at least the fundamentals to what is on my bike, how to fix my bike, and just how everything works really before we got going. So yeah.
So we're going to structure this video with a list, starting from what we think is probably the most important accessories you can have on your bike. First of which is your suspension. If you're like us, doing a trip around the world, you're going to be carrying a lot of stuff. And we went to a guy that actually runs, I think, a racing team. He replaced the springs that were appropriate for our load, and then he actually revalved the original shocks. So he's gone in and put his own parts in there to suit the spring load. As with most of these modifications, a lot of forethought's required. And if you go out and buy a suspension kit without thinking about your weight, it's essentially going to ruin the setup of your bike.
What's next?
Fuel. So traveling big distances, especially in Australia, sometimes fuel can be few and far in between. So we went with your Chevy fuel tanks. From stock, the Suzuki only will go about 250 kilometers, but with these 25 litre tanks, we get up to about 500. With these, with the locking caps, it has a breather built in, which is good. And what we also did is add an extra cushion on the frame of the Suzuki, which kind of stops the fuel tank from moving around so much, as well as some rubber door stops on the bottom brackets. The shape of the tank kind of is like almost like a wind catch. And once you get over 80, it tends to move around quite a bit.
Fuel filters as well, another main one. We get a lot of dirty fuel, especially through Indonesia and places like that. So a good way to try and filter that out is to put these things on them. Always take some spares. They've been a bit of a lifesaver in many regards.
Okay, next up we've got our panniers. This is a pretty hotly debated topic. It's kind of split into two areas, one being hard panniers, so alloy, and the other being your soft panniers. We kind of lashed out and went with quite a prominent brand being Moscow, their backcountry range. These are a soft pannier made from fabric, easy to detach, so they're like luggage, and we have absolutely put these things through the ringer.
Yeah, these things, they're so good. The choice of soft and hard panniers for us was actually quite an easy choice. I think hard panniers, when you drop your bike, so many issues can go. You can get dents, you have to beat them back out and things like that, whereas these soft ones are so durable. Yes, they're expensive, but to be fair, I think the Moscow's been money well spent. They're so easy to access. We've literally put these through like the roughest road tests, and they're still standing strong at the moment, so yeah.
Jordan even tried throwing his down the hill at one point just to make sure. You're going to want a racking system that is able to mount these platforms. This is something we recommend you don't cut corners on, because if you do drop your bike, which is inevitable if you're off-roading, these things take all the force.
Yeah, I've already broken mine once, just a clean break straight through the frame, I guess. But if you got a cheaper one, then I'm sure it would have broken like 6 or 7 times by now. Yeah, so.
Our top box storage. You're going to want to think of how you're mounting these. Just get like a hardtail Jordan's got a platform there for his bag, and mine's mounted directly onto the back of the bike. I chose a lockable hard top box. That's mainly because I want to keep my laptop and my drone in there.
Yeah, for me, I went the opposite. I went to soft luggage on the back, what we call the Chungus. It's really simple. It's a 50-litre duffel, again from Moscow, waterproof, but just a simple bag. It carries all my camping gear. I don't have that much electronics like Benny does. And for me, it's not as easy to access as compared to Ben's top box, but for a camping gear, which you only need every now and again, it's worked wonders for me and my situation. But I guess, yeah, either one just depends on what sort of a trip and what sort of luggage you're taking. So,
and it fits 2 pillows and a table.
I do have 2 pillows and a table, so the Chungus fits it all, mate. It's like Hermione's little bag.
Just that it's not little.
We've also got tank bags. Big Moscow fan. You've also gone with the
yeah, fanboyed it. Got the Nomad tank bag. This one is slightly big for the DR setup, which has a steep sort of a seat. So it does sit a little bit close to you, but the ability for this to actually be used as like a day bag and just the way that they've set it all out, I really like it, and I think it's worth having a bit of a bigger tank bag at the front. It's also got a camel bag in it, so that's pretty helpful when you're on the road.
Most of these will mount around the frame of your bike quite easily, and they come off as well to let you fill your bike up, or if you want to take it inside to your accommodation or whatnot, camping. Number 5, we've got our exhaust. So this is very popular with DR650 owners, just because of the stock tail section of the exhaust is quite heavy. Even if you're replacing just the tip of this, you're going to save yourself a couple of kilos. It's also going to help with keeping your bike temperature down, because it allows the exhaust to exit the bike a lot easier. If you do this, it's quite popular not to get the entire head back system, because they can be quite expensive. People just do the tail. You've got your Barrett.
Yeah, Aussie brand Barrett. They've been really good, actually. The only problem is the end cap has come off, probably because I've crashed that many times, but the bolts came loose. But I contacted Barrett, and they straight away just sent another one to me overseas, free of charge. So no complaints, and it actually looks really good as well, and it just has a nice noise to it, and I feel like it's been a good exhaust. So
your seat. So from standard, the Suzuki is renowned for a lot of ergonomically questionable fit outs. First of all, being the seat. It's more of like an enduro style kind of ridge. So we've all gone and bought the Sergeant comfort seats.
This thing's good. We've had days where we've been riding 10 hours if we need to do catch up and things like that, and you can get on the seat and you can comfortably sit on the bike all day. Like, it would be nice to have like maybe some sheepskin or something to make it that little bit comfortable, but realistically this is like a flat platform. You can plonk your fat ass down on it all day, and it doesn't hinder you when you get up and stand up and do off-roading as well. So this seat, hands down, I think such a good purchase.
Yeah, and the baddies love it.
Baddies love it.
Barkbusters. So this could probably be higher up. This has got to be something if you're going off-road, you just got to have these. There's no question about it. Not only do they protect your hands while you're riding off-road, but they also protect your levers. If you don't have these on your bike, you're going to be constantly breaking, bending, or snapping these levers, and we reckon.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first thing you'd put on, as Ben said, protects your levers, protects your hands, protects your fingers. When it's cold as well, it's a little wind barrier, and just going through like trails and things like that, branches and stuff will hit your bike, and it's good just to have these barkies. I actually think they should just come stock. That's how much of a requirement they are. So just get them. Doesn't matter what brand you get. I think they all do the same job. Handlebars.
Yeah, handlebars and your razors. So speaking of ergonomics again, people say that these are too low and too far back, which makes it a bit more difficult to steer. So when we were back home, this is one of our first upgrades. Most of the time they're going to be lighter, they're going to be stronger, and we've also popped in these adjustable kind of razors so you can move it further forward as well.
Yeah, I got the high bend bars as well. They work just as well as the fat ones. No issues really. They've held strong through multiple crashes, and we haven't had too many issues with them, so it's good. And with the height razors, you don't really notice it, but when you're standing up for long periods of time, you do sort of realize that you don't have to lean too far forward to get onto the handlebars, it does make a bit of a difference if you're a tall bloke like Benny and I. So
something I didn't mention before with these, the clutch cable and the brake cables aren't quite long enough if you're raising these with razors and a bar. So what Tom and I ended up doing is rerouting our cables to the same side that they lead down from. Just gives you a bit more of wiggle room.
Good begs.
So a lot of people complain about the stock ones. They actually flex under weights. They move around. They're too far forward and they sit a little bit too high. You get heaps and heaps of different brands making these lower and further back peg mounts, which we've bought, and we've actually complemented them with larger platforms for your feet. So it's just easier to use, and it actually eats out your boot a bit slower because you have a bit more surface area to play with.
Yeah, we were looking at a few different foot pegs. Realistically, we just ended up getting the $80 pretty simple Cromley ones, and wouldn't pay anything more than that. These have been sturdy. They're proper made out of steel and stuff, I think. So
I think it's chromoly, isn't it?
Frame.
Is it chromoly?
Your frame.
No, like the metal composite.
Yeah, it's like tools and shit.
How do you pronounce it?
Chromal.
Chromoly.
Like an Acadian frame.
Cromley?
It's not Cromley. It's not a brand, that's a type of steel.
Okay.
Chromal.
Cromley. Foot pegs.
I actually had that.
$80.
Yeah, they were like $400 ones, which was so fucking stupid.
That's weird. My
Yeah.
Chromal is like the tools steel. Like the tools steel.
Righto, mate.
I'm an idiot. This guy runs a KTM.
That sounds like such an insult.
Alright, what's next?
Tyres.
Tyres.
Yeah. You're going to want to think long and hard about where you're riding and the style of riding that you do before you buy your tyres. We've gone with an Aussie brand, Motors. In particular, we've gone with the GPS traction header on the rear and the Adventure Dual Sport on the front, is it?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. Can't speak high enough from this Aussie brand. This particular type of tyre has a centre strip as well as the sharp teeth on the edge, so it's a good all-round kind of 50-50 tyre. And we've got almost 30,000 Ks out of these motorbike tyres, which is just unbelievable.
Yeah, it is worth pointing out that I've had a bad experience with my rear tyre. I don't know if I can really blame Motors for that. I did have a bad puncture which sort of put a big gash in my tyre, and ever since then it's always had like dirt and stuff go through it. And I had about 12 or 13 flats on this one rear tyre from Motors. But that's not to take away from the actual tyre itself. I also ended up getting 30,000 kilometers off this tyre. No issues with the front, just the rear I had multiple flats, so yeah.
Next up, we've got our tool holder. So the Suzuki has a single cylinder exhaust, and that leaves kind of a large space on the other side of your tail section where they've decided to put a plastic tool holder that's probably about the size of your fist.
Useless.
So a lot of people head down to Bunnings, pick up some 90mm pipe, and this thing is massive.
Yeah, so what is it? You just go to Bunnings, you spend $9, you spend an hour of your time, and you put together this thing which just sits the whole length, and it fits a tool roll, as you can see. I've got spare bolts and rags in mine as well, so it's good.
And a dildo.
I do have a double ender in there just for emergencies, but there's space. That should not go in.
Okay, next is your oil cooler guard. So our engines are oil cooled or air cooled, and up the front they've got a sink there that the oil runs through to cool down your motor. From stock, the Suzuki guards aren't very strong, and if you put a hole in this, you're going to lose oil pressure, your bike's going to be leaking. You're going to want to get a good part to protect your oil cooler. B&B, which is quite a popular brand, do these.
Yep, I bought this one, and then Benny took it and just stenciled it and made it out of his own little metal workshop. Both have been perfect. Never had anything get through. Haven't given it a second thought, and it's given us peace of mind. So yeah, a good mod.
Dash plates. I stayed with the standard Suzuki product. I took it back though and then powder coated it black so it looked cool. Very important.
I changed mine. I got rid of the heavy metal one and I bought the Acerbi plastic bash plate. Works a charm. I have tested this thing to its limits. It's been hit by rocks. I've literally hit the whole bike onto steep ledges and things like that. This thing hasn't had a problem, and it doesn't make the big loud concerning noise the metal one does as well. And because it's plastic, it just sort of holds its shape really well. So yeah.
Have you lost it though and ridden over it?
Never lost it and ridden over it either, so
Very good.
yeah. No, I'm doing well, mate.
Frame guards.
Yeah, I ended up just getting like a cheapy Chinese brand, Zittima it's called, and it does the same job. It's not metal like Benny's, but just sits there and protects that part. Then we got some better ones. We've got the Warp 9s on the, is that the engine case?
Yeah.
And they've worked charm. They are there to protect the engine in case your bike comes over. You don't want anything puncturing it like a stone or anything like that.
Yeah, and most of these don't make it too difficult when you're doing your oil changes as well. The Warp 9 ones, you just pop those 3 bolts off and you're able to get into your filter.
the chain guard as well. I don't know where I got that from, but it's just a standard one. This is the main one. This one I've used a lot because my chain broke in Thailand. So this is your front sprocket guard. If my chain had broken and I didn't have this, who knows, the chain could have honestly just completely broken my foot. I could have had real serious issues. What ended up happening, got caught in the sprocket guard, which is what it's meant to do. It did bend the hell out of it, but it did its job, and I had no issues when my chain broke, and I just sort of pulled over to the side. We managed to sort of bend this thing back. Did its job. Perfect. Headlights. Suzuki stock lights are pretty dog shit. So it's pretty much like a lamp, the stock. So you have to upgrade that if you're doing any night riding. And if you're doing a trip like this, things go wrong, you always end up doing some sort of night riding. And we upgraded to the JNS LED lights on our bikes, which are good. It's got a stock light that lets everyone know you're there throughout the day, and if you need high beams, it actually does a pretty decent job of lighting up the road in front of you. But I do recommend, if you're doing a big cross-world trip, definitely get someone in your group like we've got Benny to have spotties on their bike, because it's just nothing can compare to lighting up the road like some spotties.
Okay, your windbreak. Again, if you're doing a lot of riding, especially on the highway, you're going to have a lot of wind hitting your chest, a lot of dust, a lot of rocks. If you put these brakes on, essentially you're going to have a quieter ride, and it's just going to be a bit more comfortable.
I mainly just wanted it to protect my electrics when I'm charging my phone and things like that. I don't want so much dust and wind and rain getting at it, and it does its job. Lots of people actually make these out of bin lids, which is pretty funny. Whacked it on, never had an issue with it, haven't even had to touch it, so they've been good.
Oh, hitty grips.
A necessity, in my opinion. Lots of people will say you're a bit of a coward if you have heated grips, but we've done so much snow, high passes and things like that. It's just, in all honesty, it's something you do need, because the first thing to get cold is your fingers. If it's wet and cold and windy, just put your heated grips on, works a charm. Well, yours don't.
Yeah. I originally went with the Simtech ones, which you wrap around your handles and then you plug in a switch and they kind of warm your grips for you. But what we've found, especially with more aggressive riding, is these tend to wear down. Your contact points are going to have issues. If I was to do it again, I would get what's on your bike.
Yeah, I've got the Oxford. This actually came when I bought my bike secondhand, so it's a bit worn, but it still does its job. Has lots of settings. It's pretty much built into the grip, so the whole thing heats up. If you go to 100, it'll burn your hands, and if you put it at 50%, it gets you through these passes so easily. So yeah, a great mod.
Next up, your mirrors. So the stock ones, they're very short, and you'll find yourself looking into your forearm while you're riding.
These are mine. These are the double takes. I bought these. They've been fantastic, to be honest.
Tom and I cheaped out. We got the mirror extenders. They just sit between your bar end and the mirror. Works.
Yeah.
Good enough for me. Quad lock.
Body. There it is. So you get a case for your phone and you pretty much just mount it. You've seen these on your cars, bikes, whatever you need. The only thing that we bought different with this is we bought the vibration dampener, which sort of stops the phone from rattling as much. Never had a concern that my phone would come off. So yeah, it's been fantastic. Not sponsored, by the way.
Yeah. Sponsor us though.
Sponsor us though, yeah. Dash. Really simple setup. This isn't the one I got, but I did buy a similar one. It just gives you 2 spots for new switches to put in, a spot for a charger and your 12 volt. And then you and Tom just made your own out of this stencil, I guess.
Does the job, and they just mount below your kind of bar mounts snugly there. There are concerns raised that the stock stator can't handle all of running the bike and a lot of charging at the same time. Because we've upgraded our lights, as well as changed things like our indicators and tail lights, our draw is a lot less on our battery. So we haven't had issues with our stators or our batteries, but that is something that some people put in their bikes. So just consider that if you're constantly running other accessories. Foot pad.
This is mine.
Yeah, you got the yin yang.
Yeah, Zidama, another Chinese brand, $20 or something like that. Really good. Like, essentially what this is if you got the stock, it's really thin. You put it on dirt, mud, sand, whatever. It'll just sink if your bike's heavy and your bike will fall over.
You wouldn't think it, but it is a pain in the ass having that standard one because your bike's always falling over.
I think Tom didn't have one for ages and his bike fell over all the time. So, yeah.
Clutch upgrade. Once your bike's a lot heavier, you're going to wear through things a lot quicker. All 3 of us have gone through clutches at different points of this trip. Tom, unfortunately, probably at the worst of times when we're in a mountain in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we had a spare clutch plate to replace it with. We also had oil spare, so we could do it. We didn't have a spare gasket, so Tom's oil was pissing out for the next, I think, day until we got to a city where we could do it properly.
Yeah. This clutch upgrade, in my opinion, should be higher on this list. It's a requirement. We've got the heavy duty clutch we put in. I burnt through my clutch within the first 6 months, I think, and it was slipping. We all got the same heavy duty one. It does make it hard to pull in your clutch lever, but if you're a novice rider like me and sometimes you ride in the gears more, it's definitely worthwhile to put this in before you get going. Sprocket.
Okay, so on our trip, we're doing a lot of off-roading, a lot of steep stuff, especially.
Which you wouldn't have seen yet on the YouTube videos, but they're coming.
If you're not a professional rider, having lower gearing is going to help you a lot. You're going to be using the clutch less. You're going to feel like you have more control of the bike, and it's going to be easy to ride. That does affect you at the top end on the highway, but our bikes still do 100, 110 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, I've got the 14-tooth smaller front sprocket. Makes such a difference for me just to be able to crawl up in first and second gear really slowly. Probably does eat away at my chain a bit quicker than what the 15-tooth stock one does, but worthwhile for me just to be able to get into that gear and just sort of go at a slow pace if need be.
And if you are going to change these sprockets in and out, make sure you do a chain at the same time. It just kind of makes sense. These parts kind of wear together, so keep that in mind. Okay, LED lighting. We did things like our tail light because they're quite dim. They're also halogen, so a little bit less draw. We've also done things like indicators, again, less draw on that battery and that stator. And most importantly of all is it looks cool. Another important aesthetic
tidy
upgrade
tail
is your tidy tail. Again, a halogen light, get rid of it, put an LED one in.
That
bit of
stock
alloy.
tail looks so Gieben.
Yeah.
Why keep it? It just gets in the way.
At the end of this video, I'm also going to pop up a spreadsheet. It's just going to detail a lot of the brands that we've used and the price, if that does interest you.
Yeah, bike's just been great, to be honest. It's been a bit of a beast, simple bike. We've ridden with people who've had different bikes, and with the way some say better, but what we found is that when they have a bunch of issues go wrong, ours is so simple that it doesn't really have those issues. Yes, we might lack a bit of performance here and there, but for what we're doing and the way that we're crossing the world, this has been perfect. So do whatever suits you, obviously, but the DR and these mods. Is there a mod that you would get rid of? Or is there a mod that you would add? A louder horn.
Yeah.
Yeah, get like a fucking foghorn or something.
If going through Asia and Middle East, just put a car horn on your bike.
That actually would. That would be a great mod. That's a recommendation, a requirement. If you're doing it, put a train horn somewhere on your bike, mount it on the fender at the front. Yeah.